Well, hello again. Welcome again to another episode of Down to Earth, but Heavenly Minded. And I'm your host, Risch. And today we're going to continue on in our study in the Psalms. And in our second episode here, we're going to be looking at the beautiful Savior.
Studies in Psalms, The Beautiful Savior, by Daniel C. Snaddon. In various scriptures, there are praises of Christ that label him precious and beautiful. We find one of these in Psalm 45, when the psalmist cries, "You are fairer than the sons of men, grace is poured upon your lips." When the psalmist used the word fairer, this is like saying that Christ is beautiful. Beloved, do you think of Christ this way? We can also see names given to Christ in prophecies of Isaiah, for example in Isaiah 9. Isaiah cries, "And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Isaiah 9 verse 6, even in Peter's experience in the Gospels, we see him calling Jesus the Christ, which is revealed to him by God. Matthew 16 verse 16, in Peter's writings later, we see him still identifying Jesus as his precious Savior. Therefore, to you who believe, he is precious. 1 Peter 2 verse 7, we then see Thomas identifying Jesus as his precious Lord, once a doubting witness, but eventually a believing disciple after Christ reappeared following his resurrection. After seeing his wound, Thomas cries in awe and renewed belief, "My Lord and my God." John 20 verse 28. If we take a look at Song of Songs 5, we see other praises for the beauty of the Lord, represented by the Beloved. The women of Jerusalem are asked, "What is your beloved more than another beloved?" Song of Songs 5 verse 9, the bride, who can represent the church or body of believers, answers, "My beloved is white and ruddy, chief among 10,000. The bride then tries to describe the beauty of the bridegroom using images of the finest things to describe him, but finds him utterly beyond compare, and ultimately exclaims, "Yes, he is altogether lovely. This is my beloved, and this is my friend." Song of Solomon 5 verse 16. Mary Magdalene is yet another example of a woman that displays devotion to a precious and beautiful Savior. At various times, she names Jesus, "My Lord, Rabbi, and Master." See John 20 verse 13 and 20:16, she also shows undivided worship of her Savior. In one story in John 12 verses 1-8, Mary opens a costly oil jar in order to worship and anoint her precious Lord before his death. In her worship, however, Mary never speaks a word, simply weeping and wiping his feet with her hair. The fragrance of her action expresses her adoration and worship, and it fills the room. This image has lived on through time and is still a wonderful example of sacrificial love for our Savior. What is so memorable is that Mary recognizes the Lord as worthy of worship because he was the fairest and most beautiful man in the world. In a similar story, a woman breaks an alabaster box filled with expensive oil and anoints Jesus' head, much to the chagrin of those standing by. In Mark 14 verse 6, Jesus tells those observing the scene, "Let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a good work for me. Against the day of my burial she has done this." In another instance, Mary and Martha are hosting Jesus at their home and Martha becomes red-faced and ruffled with the responsibilities of hosting. After all, this meal she is hosting is not just for an average family member or even a Pharisee. The Christ, the Son of God, is in her home. Mary, however, sits at Jesus' feet, worshipping and adoring her precious Savior. Jesus condones her worship and devotion to him, saying, "But one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her." Luke 10 verse 42, indeed, worship of Jesus, in its purity, is always near the cross. Brothers and sisters, we should all remember the words of the hymn "In the cross of Christ I glory" that worships Christ, saying, "In the cross of Christ I glory," towering over the wrecks of time.
The end.